So at this point, I would present Kathleen Vinehout, Senator from the 31st Senate District. Kathleen Vinehout.
Imagine that you have a loved one in the hospital and night falls and you kiss your loved one goodnight and you walk the long corridor and out into the big parking lot and you wonder, will they be better tomorrow? Will they be worse tomorrow? Will they be the same? You probably never wonder, is that nurse that works the night shift gonna be licensed? There's a bill, there are two bills that were just voted out of committee last week on a committee that I serve that would set up a process to de-license professionals and occupations. It doesn't, if I'm telling you something that you've never heard of before, don't be surprised, because nobody in the state has heard of it unless they happen to have read the two columns I wrote on this. Because the combined hearing in the Senate and the Assembly happened on the same day as the massive Foxconn hearing happened. And all the reporters and all the TV stations and all the people around the state that do press all went to hear the Foxconn hearing. And that hearing, an all-day hearing in the Capitol, to me, it was the starkest example of what's happened to the Wisconsin legislature. On one side, there were 5 ideological conservative groups, several of them who flew in from Washington, D.C. or Arlington, Virginia. And on the other side were over 100 people in Wisconsin who said, don't take away my occupation or professional licensing. And I started to do research on why this was happening and who was behind this and who these groups were. And I kept finding that the groups were funded by the Koch brothers and the Bradley Foundation. Groups with names like Institute for Law or Liberty, or the Institute for Justice, or the Mercatus Center, who set out a policy word for word in a document that was published almost right before the hearing we had in August of 2017. That was worded almost identical to a budget provision that the governor put in his budget in February. Almost identical. And the bill that was going through, that now passed out of committee and could be voted out by the full Senate by the end of this month, the bills had language that was the same when I started digging as a bill that was put forth by the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC. One of the processes that they laid out in one of these two bills was to allow people who were not trained in a profession to set up a self-certification registry. So Kathleen wants to become a plumber, and I'm not a very good plumber. I can become a plumber by saying that I am part of this self-certification registry and use the title state certified on my marketing campaign. This is happening in other states, but the only other state that's come close to passing it, making it state law, is Indiana. So, Wisconsin used to be the laboratory of democracy when it came to progressive ideas. We've now become the laboratory of the ideologically conservative ideas. And when I asked the chair of the committee, I said, what problem are we solving with this bill, and why are we doing this? He couldn't say anything except, I don't want any fence me out legislation. Okay, so that's good enough to get rid of licensing. The whole experience reminded me of why I am running for governor. Because I am not going to roll over and play dead to the Koch brothers. I'm running for governor to put people first, to put people at the center of state policy, put people at the center of budget priorities. And when I think about the priorities now, it is exactly the opposite. Where the state's been giving hundreds of millions of dollars to companies that couldn't even be independently verified as creating a job, and now the state's given $3 billion to a guy who's worth $10.5 billion already. At the same time, the state is starving all those pieces of state government that put people first, whether it's fixing the funding formula, providing help for the mentally ill and people that are addicted to substances, putting the roads back in good shape, which for many, many years they always were. When I think about what people first means, the first thing I think of is people don't have money in their pockets. Wisconsin is 18th worst in the country in terms of average wages and salaries. Worse than Georgia, Louisiana, Missouri, and Tennessee. And speaking of Tennessee, I believe in free tech college and 2-year UW campus college tuition. And the idea didn't come from me. The idea came from the Republican governor of Tennessee. And I have a bill that I have drafted modeled on that legislation in Tennessee that pays fully for this program using the same amount of dollars that are in the state budget right now. The same amount of dollars. You know, thinking about putting people first and what has happened that has not put people first, the first thing I think of is when the governor dropped the bomb on teachers and public employees. Talk about not putting people first. You don't drop bombs on people. And the fallout from that bomb is still affecting us, whether it's teachers with low morale, teachers that are retiring, people not going into education, professors that are leaving the University of Wisconsin and taking their grant money with them, state employees that we can't keep because they're leaving. Just this week, on Tuesday, we're going to have a big hearing on the problems at the King Veteran Home. Well, one of the big problems that showed up in the audit is they can't keep staff. They keep leaving. Why? Well, how would you like to work for a guy who drops bombs on you? When you think about it, that's the opposite of putting people first. And it was Act 10 that motivated me to do something that I've called, over the years, an alternative to the governor's budget. Funding policies and priorities in a different way, using the same money in the budget. And for 4 different cycles, I put together an alternative to the governor's budget. And actually, this cycle, it was the easiest it's ever been. Because one of my priorities in putting people first is to change the way we pay for schools, which now is prejudiced against both urban and rural people, kids, because of the way it's put together. And we can change the funding formula. And this time when I did my alternative, I found that it was much easier because what the governor did was put a lot of money into schools, but he didn't fix the problems. He put it outside the funding formula instead of fixing it. He had the money, he didn't do it. He could have done it with the same amount of money. Another example of putting people first is healthcare. We know how to fix healthcare. Every other industrialized nation has done it. Healthcare is the reason I ran in 2006. It is what drives me to get up in the morning. There are people all over the state that still don't have health insurance, and a lot of people that are paying a lot of money for really awful insurance. And this is a solvable problem. There are many steps to getting to where I want to be, but the first one is to create our own Wisconsin-based marketplace, something that Minnesota has done and that many other states have done. The second one is so simple. Governor, will you please take the Medicaid expansion money? Take it. Because when you take it, you release us of spending on almost $300 million, $286 million in cash in this budget. That because feds will be covering somebody we're already covering, that's money that needs to be put into alternatives to incarceration. It needs to be put into mental health and substance abuse treatment. We should not be imprisoning the people that we are imprisoning who are there because of an addiction. We know how to change these problems. It's no accident that Minnesota has half of the people incarcerated as Wisconsin. Because years ago, they put together a community-based mental health and substance abuse network of services. It's something we need to do and we should have done years ago, and today is the best day to get started on it, to not wait. And when I think about what we do to bring healthcare to everyone, create that marketplace, but creating that marketplace allows us to do something that many of you support, which is to have a public option in Wisconsin. Because if we have our own marketplace, we don't have to go to the federal government and say, please, please, please. If you are from the western part of the state, like the folks that I represent, you probably heard a lot about Governor Dayton's idea to create a version of Minnesota Care for all, allowing basically people on the marketplace to buy into the Medicaid program. We could do that here in Wisconsin. It's an example of what it means to put people first. And when I think about what else putting people first means, it means maintaining our infrastructure. Recognizing that climate change is real. And hiring back those scientists that the governor fired and putting them to work to help us deal with the problems that climate change is creating in Wisconsin right now. Right now. When I think about putting people first, it's preserving the air and water so that everyone has an opportunity to enjoy it. Which means, of course, fully funding with state dollars, like they used to be, our state parks, instead of raising the fees and raising them so an average person can't afford it anymore. And putting people first means helping people with the support services they need to be able to have opportunities. Whether it is help with child care. I have a physical therapist who helps me, and she said she's spending half of her salary on infant child care. And when I started to research this, I realized that Wisconsin is the third worst in terms of affordable infant-based child care. That's a problem the state can help fix. Now, many of these things that I've talked about and other ideas that I have will only work if we make local government our partner in providing these services. And we have seen, since 2011, policy after policy that has taken away local powers. Instead, the state needs to make local government and tribes our partner in providing the services, because they are on the front line. They know about the problem more than anybody else. And the tribes need the resources that the state has not been providing. And this local government needs the resources that the state has not been providing. Now, all of these ideas, many of them I've written about in the alternative budget, and all of them show a new direction. The dollars are the same, but the direction is different. And when I think about what my vision for Wisconsin looks like, it's a state where we build from the bottom up, not the top down. It's a state where everybody has a thriving community to live in, to play in, to start a new business in, to recreate, have great amenities like parks, where we all chip in, We all work together, and then we all share the rewards. And everyone's participation and differences are honored and respected. Now, putting people first in state policy is going to start with putting people first in campaigns. Because it's local people that know what works in their neighborhood. And far too long, the state has run campaigns from not even Madison, but places like Boston and Brooklyn. It's the local people that know what works. It's the local people that have seen good ideas, helping them win, and not so good ideas, not helping them win. And when I think about what that means, I think about first understanding why the Democrats lost in 2016. Some of you know my rep, Chris Dano. He lost by 1,000 votes, one of the last few Democrats, rural Democrats in the legislature, in the assembly especially. And I started on a journey when he lost to look at the details of why he lost. And I physically sat in the county in Trempealeau at the county courthouse and counted new voter registrations, physically. And each one of those new voter registrations represented likely a new voter for Trump. I counted 1,666, which is about 12% of the vote in Trempealeau County. It was a 24% of the vote in the county seat in Whitehall. Oftentimes I'm asked, you can't go up against Scott Walker because you need to learn how to talk Trump light. You're too progressive. You need to learn how to talk angry white man. Well, I am here to tell you that's just not true. What my research demonstrated is that there are two different groups of people going to the polls. There are the people who voted for Obama in 2012, and there are people who voted for Trump in 2016, and they are different people. You all know that the voter turnout was down, which tells you if a whole lot of new Trump voters showed up, a whole lot of Democrats stayed home. And in my world, in the West and the North, that's exactly what happened. Hillary got slightly more than a regular, what we call a non-presidential year. Slightly more. Nowhere near a presidential year. So what does that mean? The candidate that is successful for governor needs to talk about policies that make a difference in people's lives. We don't need to talk less progressive, less democratic. We need to talk more progressive and more democratic. And when I think about what election day looks like, there's nobody on election day that should say they all sound the same. I couldn't make a choice because they all sound the same. Because our message should be so clear, so compelling, and so relevant that nobody gets to election day without saying, this is what the Democrats stand for. Now that gives all of us a mission to accomplish. That gives all of us a grab your clipboard, lace up your boots, let's start getting to work. Because frankly, the Democrats are not going to win with a lot of money. We've seen that, we've gone down that road as a state over and over again. Sure, we need money, but we're never going to beat the money they have. But we, ladies and gentlemen, are the party of the people. Let us make that task, that slogan, our task. Let's make it our mission. Let's embody being the party of the people. And let's put people first in everything we do. Thank you very much.